Millionaire CEO's daughter made 23 nannies quit until new nanny did the impossible. An emotional story by Heartfelt Tales. The crystal vase shattered against the marble floor with a sound that echoed through the mansion like a gunshot. 6-year-old Emma stood defiantly in the doorway, her blonde hair wild and her blue eyes blazing with fury as another nanny packed her bags in defeat. This was the 23rd caregiver to quit in 18 months, and Marcus Whitman was running out of options for his daughter, who seemed determined to drive away anyone who dared to care for her. Marcus loosened his tie as he watched the latest casualty hurry past him without making eye contact. The woman who had lasted exactly 4 days mumbled something about impossible children and more than she bargained for before disappearing out the front door. He stood in his pristine living room, surrounded by the wreckage of Emma's latest tantrum, and felt the familiar weight of helplessness settle on his shoulders like a heavy coat. The truth was, Marcus had built an empire worth hundreds of millions, commanded boardrooms full of powerful executives, and could negotiate deals that moved markets. But when it came to his own daughter, he was utterly lost. Ever since his wife Sarah had died in a car accident 2 years ago, Emma had become increasingly difficult, angry, and unreachable. She rejected every attempt at connection, destroyed property, and seemed to take particular pleasure in tormenting anyone who tried to fill the void her mother had left behind. The doorbell rang again just as Marcus was contemplating whether he should take time off work to deal with Emma himself, though he honestly had no idea where to even begin. His assistant had warned him that the placement agency was running out of candidates willing to work with challenging children, especially at his address, which had apparently gained a reputation in caregiver circles. Standing at his door was a woman who looked nothing like the parade of professional nannies who had come before. Elena Rodriguez was perhaps in her early 30s, with warm brown eyes and an easy smile that didn't waver even when the sound of something else breaking came from upstairs. She wore simple jeans and a cardigan, and carried only a small canvas bag instead of the usual arsenal of credentials and reference letters. "Mr. Whitman? I'm Elena. I understand you need help with your daughter." Her voice was soft but steady, with a slight accent that spoke of a childhood spent switching between Spanish and English. Marcus found himself studying her face, looking for the same nervous energy or forced confidence he'd seen in all the others. Instead, he saw something that surprised him: genuine calm. Not the brittle composure of someone trying to convince themselves they could handle anything, but the deep stillness of someone who had already seen life's worst storms and learned to stand steady in the wind. "I have to be honest with you," Marcus said, running his hand through his dark hair. She's been through a lot. She doesn't make it easy. The last woman lasted 4 days, and that was actually longer than most." Elena nodded thoughtfully. "Grief doesn't follow schedules or behave politely, Mr. Whitman. Children especially don't know how to process losing someone so important." "May I meet her?" There was something about the way she said it that made Marcus pause. Not, "Can I see the child?" or "Where is she?" but "May I meet her?" as if Emma was a person worthy of a proper introduction rather than a problem to be managed. They found Emma in her room, sitting on her bed surrounded by torn picture books and broken toys. She looked up when they entered, and Marcus braced himself for the usual performance: screaming, throwing things, or the silent treatment that could stretch for hours. Instead, Emma simply stared at Elena with curious intensity. Elena didn't immediately start talking to Emma or try to clean up the mess or launch into the kind of cheerful introduction that made most children instinctively recoil. She simply stood there for a moment, taking in the scene, and then sat down on the floor among the scattered debris. "Looks like you're having a pretty tough day," she said quietly, not looking directly at Emma but picking up one of the torn pages from a picture book. It showed half of a family at a picnic. "Sometimes when I'm really mad or sad, I want to break things too. It feels like maybe if I break enough stuff, the hurt might come out with it." Emma watched her suspiciously but didn't say anything. Marcus started to speak, but Elena held up a gentle hand to stop him. "I lost someone really important too," Elena continued, smoothing out the torn page. "My little sister. She was about your age." And after she died, I was so angry I wanted to break everything in the whole world. Especially the things that reminded me of her, because they made the missing hurt even worse. This got Emma's attention. She slid off the bed and came a little closer, though still maintaining a safe distance. "Did you break things?" Emma asked, her voice small and rusty from disuse. "I broke dishes, picture frames, even punched a hole in my bedroom wall once. My mom was so worried about me she didn't know what to do. But you know what I figured out eventually?" Emma shook her head. Breaking things didn't make the hurt go away. It just made more broken things in a world that already felt pretty broken. But talking about my sister, remembering the good times we had, that actually helped. Not right away, but slowly. Marcus watched in amazement as his daughter, who hadn't had a real conversation with any caregiver in months, crept closer to Elena. "What was your sister's name?" Emma asked. "Maria. She had curly hair like yours, but dark brown. And she was the bossiest little person you ever met. She would line up all her stuffed animals and pretend to be their teacher, and if any of them misbehaved, she would give them very serious lectures about proper behavior." For the first time in longer than Marcus could remember, Emma almost smiled. "Mama used to do voices for all my stuffed animals," Emma whispered. "Different voices for each one." "That sounds wonderful," Elena said warmly. "I bet she was really good at it." Emma nodded vigorously. "She was the best. But now nobody does the voices right." Instead of trying to immediately offer to do the voices herself or rush to fill that gap, Elena simply nodded. It's hard when someone special like that isn't there anymore to do the things that made them special. Nobody can do them exactly the same way. Over the following weeks, Marcus watched in wonder as Elena worked what seemed like magic with his daughter. But as he observed more closely, he realized it wasn't magic at all. It was patience, consistency, and something none of the other caregivers had possessed, the wisdom that came from genuine understanding of loss. Elena didn't try to replace Emma's mother or pretend the grief didn't exist. Instead, she helped Emma find ways to honor her mother's memory while still living her own life. They created a special box where Emma could put drawings and letters to her mother. They looked through photo albums together, with Elena encouraging Emma to tell stories about the pictures rather than avoiding the pain of remembrance. When Emma had bad days and reverted to destructive behavior, Elena didn't punish her or try to jolly her out of it. She would simply sit with Emma through the storm, offering quiet presence and unconditional acceptance. She had a way of acknowledging Emma's pain without trying to fix it or make it disappear. "Grief isn't something we get over," Marcus overheard Elena telling Emma one evening as she helped her get ready for bed. "It's something we learn to carry. Like a backpack that's really heavy at first, but as we get stronger, it gets easier to walk with it." Slowly, remarkably, Emma began to heal. She started sleeping through the night again. She began playing with her toys instead of destroying them. She even started talking to Marcus more, though their conversations were still tentative and careful. But Elena's impact on the household went beyond just managing Emma's behavior. She brought warmth and life back to the sterile mansion in ways Marcus hadn't expected. She cooked meals that filled the house with wonderful smells, sang Spanish lullabies that drifted through the halls, and somehow made their enormous house feel like a home again. Marcus found himself looking forward to coming home from work, not with the dread that had become his constant companion, but with genuine anticipation. Elena would greet him with updates about Emma's day that focused on small victories and moments of joy rather than problems to be solved. She had a way of helping him see his daughter not as a damaged child to be fixed, but as a resilient little person learning to navigate an incredibly difficult situation. One evening, about 2 months after Elena's arrival, Marcus came home to find Emma and Elena in the living room having what appeared to be a very serious tea party with an elaborate array of stuffed animals. Emma was using different voices for each animal, just like her mother used to do, and Elena was playing along with delighted enthusiasm. "Daddy!" Emma called when she saw him. "Come have tea with us." Mr. Bear is being very naughty today and needs to learn proper manners." As Marcus joined them on the floor, accepting a tiny plastic cup of imaginary tea, he felt something he hadn't experienced in 2 years: pure, uncomplicated happiness. His daughter was laughing. She was playing. She was being a child again. That night, after Emma was asleep, Marcus found Elena in the kitchen cleaning up from dinner. "I don't know how to thank you," he said quietly. "What you've done for Emma, for both of us. I had almost given up hope that she would ever be happy again." Elena smiled, but there was something sad in her expression. "Children are incredibly resilient, Mr. Whitman. Emma just needed someone who understood that healing isn't about forgetting or moving on. It's about learning to carry love and loss together." "How did you become so wise about grief?" Marcus asked. Elena was quiet for a long moment, drying dishes with careful attention. "When Maria died, I made a lot of mistakes. I tried to pretend it hadn't happened, tried to rush past the pain, tried to be strong in all the wrong ways. It took me years to learn that grief isn't the enemy. It's just love with nowhere to go. Once I understood that, I realized I wanted to help other children who were lost in that same dark place." Over the following months, Elena became more than just Emma's caregiver. She became part of their family in a way that felt natural and right. She helped Emma navigate the difficult first anniversary of her mother's death, turning it into a celebration of Sarah's life rather than just a day of mourning. She encouraged Marcus to share more stories about Sarah with Emma, helping them both keep her memory alive in healthy ways. Elena also gently pushed Marcus to examine his own relationship with grief. He had been so focused on Emma's pain that he had never properly processed his own loss. Elena helped him understand that Emma needed to see him grieving and healing too, that children learn more from what they observe than what they're told. Slowly, carefully, Marcus began to open his heart to the possibility that healing didn't mean forgetting, and that letting new love in didn't diminish what he had shared with Sarah. The change in their house was remarkable. Emma's laughter echoed through rooms that had been silent for too long. Family dinners became occasions for storytelling and silly jokes. Bedtimes were filled with stories and songs instead of tears and tantrums. But perhaps the most profound change was in Marcus himself. Elena's presence had reminded him that he was more than just a successful businessman. He was a father, a man capable of deep love and connection. She had shown him that vulnerability wasn't weakness, and that sometimes the most courageous thing you can do is allow yourself to heal. 1 year after Elena's arrival, Marcus stood in the same doorway where he had watched so many caregivers flee in defeat. But this time, he was watching Emma and Elena plant flowers in the garden, creating something beautiful together. Emma was chattering excitedly about which colors her mother would have liked best, and Elena was listening with the same patient attention she had shown from the very first day. That evening, as they sat together after Emma had gone to bed, Marcus finally found the courage to say what had been growing in his heart for months. "Elena," he said softly, "I know this wasn't part of the job description, but somewhere along the way, you didn't just help Emma heal. You helped me remember how to be alive again. I love you. Both Emma and I love you, and I can't imagine our lives without you in them." Elena's eyes filled with tears, but they were tears of joy. "I love you both too," she whispered. "More than I ever thought possible." 6 months later, they stood together in the same garden where Emma and Elena had planted those first flowers, surrounded by friends and family, as they promised to love and cherish each other for the rest of their lives. Emma, radiant in a pale pink dress, served as their flower girl, scattering petals with the same enthusiasm she once reserved for destruction. In the end, Elena had accomplished what 23 other caregivers could not. But it wasn't because she was more qualified or experienced or skilled at managing difficult children. It was because she understood the most important truth about healing. Sometimes the greatest gift we can offer someone isn't trying to take their pain away, but simply choosing to sit with them in their darkness until they're ready to find their way back to the light. The impossible had indeed been done. A broken family had been made whole again, not through force or professional expertise, but through the simple, revolutionary act of loving without condition, grieving without shame, and believing that even the most shattered hearts can learn to beat with joy again. Emma had found her voice again, Marcus had rediscovered his capacity for happiness, and Elena had learned that sometimes when we open our hearts to heal others, we end up healing ourselves in ways we never expected. Their story became a testament to the truth that love, patience, and understanding can indeed work miracles, one small act of compassion at a time.